Hi, it's Becky with Life Keys Energy, and today you're joining me from my living room of my tiny house. I am snowed in with over a foot of snow and cannot get to the studio. And I woke up this morning with lots of aches and pains I don't generally have. And part of that is because I haven't been as active as I normally am because there's been no students to teach. And the second part of that is I've been using muscles I don't generally use. Shoveling snow is not a yogic activity. So we're gonna do some myofascial release this morning to see if we can get the fascia to kind of release a little bit and release some of the tension. One reason we care about fascia so much is it's the casing that surrounds the muscles, the ligaments, and the tendons. And when this casing starts to get like old and brittle, like old plastic, it reduces flexibility, it increases the likelihood for injuries, it increases our aches and pains. So our fascia is super important. And on top of that, we have fascia that surrounds our heart. And I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want that tissue to start to harden up. I'd like my heart to keep beating as strong and as powerfully as it did from the day I was born. So for this video, you will need 2 balls. I suggest racquet balls. They are the softest, most squishiest, most inexpensive option. If you know that you roll regularly, maybe you're ready for tennis balls. Tennis balls have a little bit less give, still super inexpensive. If you are like hardcore and you enjoy that intense release, lacrosse balls may be your friends. I will say lacrosse balls have absolutely no give to them. So if you find them too intense, go ahead and step down. So before we get started, we're going to go ahead and stand up. I'm just going to invite you to come into a mountain pose. Feet hips distance apart. Really find your center and your core here. Find some strength and stability. And then you're going to hinge at the waist, fold forward, and just bring the hands down as far as they'll go. Maybe they touch the ground, maybe they don't. Just notice though. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So grabbing a racquet ball or a tennis ball, we're going to bring it onto the floor. And we're going to start to roll the sen lines, the S-E-N lines. And those are located from the heel to the big toe and back down, from the heel to the middle 2 toes and back down, and from the heel out to the pinky toe and back down. So we're going to do all 3 of those 3 times. So starting at the heel, rolling down that inner arch to the big toe and back 3 times, using your breath. And coming into that middle sen line, going from the heel to the 2 middle toes and back 3 times. And finally from the heel to the pinky toe and back out 3 times. Now while you were doing this, you might have noticed some sensitive spots. I personally know that I always have 2. One is right under my big toe joint here, and one is right in the middle. Those are my personal points. Go ahead and roll the ball around and see if you can find one of your trigger points. Once you find that, push down on it and hold. Take some deep breaths here and start to tune into that release point. Notice the tension that's there and see if you can start to release the tension with your breath. Now, if you've held this spot for over 30 seconds and it's still super tight, go ahead and back off just a little bit and move it and try again. After you find that, maybe see if there's another spot that would like your attention and love today. Like I said, for me, that's always in the arch. And then from reflexology, we know that this heel ridge line is directly related to the low back and the sciatic nerve. So you're going to go ahead and take the ball and rub it back and forth on this heel crease several times, just starting to loosen up that low back, loosen up the sciatic nerve. If you notice any points are incredibly tender, please hold. And then the top of the toe ridge is the top of your shoulders and your necks. So just rolling back and forth, breaking up the fascia there, finding any tender spots and holding. And remember, I'm recording quite fast in interest of time and space. So if you find a tender spot, feel free to hold that. You wouldn't want to hold it for more than 3 minutes, but 30 seconds to 90 seconds is a perfect time. So if we do 1 foot, we get to do the other. So bringing the ball to the opposite foot, same exact formula, starting at the heel, rolling out to the big toe and back 3 times. And then from the heel to the middle 2 toes and back out 3 times. And then from the heel to the pinky toe and back 3 times. And just like we did on the first foot, finding any tender spots you might have, pushing down, adding just a little bit of pressure here, breathing in. And seeing if there's any other spots that are calling your name today. And finding that heel ridge line again, rolling the foot back, rolling the ball back and forth on the heel ridge. And then coming to the base of the big toes, rubbing back and forth, finding any tension that might be there, holding any spots. Exhale, release, roll it up. Now, just like we did to start, we're just going to come into a forward fold and see if we get a little deeper here. I think I'm getting a little deeper, and I haven't even done any yoga stretches yet. What about you? We're going to go ahead and find a seat. We're going to take both balls, and right in the meaty part of this calf, we're going to put the ball there. And then flexing the feet, adding just a little bit of tension, starting to roll the balls around, sinking any weight into any tender spots, really using the breath here. Breathe, breathe, breathe. And just noticing. And once again, feel free to hold any of these spots a little bit longer if that's what your body's asking for today. And after you get all the tender spots in your calf worked out, go ahead and roll the calf onto its side and get right in between the shin bone and that muscle. It's often super tender there, especially if you run or hike a lot. Super tender spot. And don't be afraid to move the leg around on the ball to find the perfect spot and the perfect amount of pressure. So after you've done both calves and they're feeling pretty good, we're going to take the ball. I like to take both of them, put them side by side, and we're going to start right at the hip and work all the way down the IT band. Now your IT band can be super grumpy. It gets grumpy because it's not a muscle we stretch a lot. So if you walk, if you hike, if you run, if you bike, this is a very tender area. So we're going to take both balls, and for me, I like to put all my weight on my hand and on my leg, and then lower down gently onto the balls. Breathe, breathe, breathe. And we'll hold each spot for about 30 seconds, but again, if you would like to hold it longer, you're welcome to. And then just rolling up on the 2 balls, finding any trigger points. We found one. And finally, just working the way down the leg. It's not super graceful, it's not real elegant, but man, is it effective. Breathe in. And you can roll the balls back and forth, really starting to break up that fascia tissue. And then rolling the leg back and forth. So if we do one side, here you got it, we get to do the other. So taking both balls again, right here at hip level, sinking the weight down onto it. Breathe in here. And maybe come up a little bit more. Now be careful with myofascial release. It's super effective, but it's also one of those modalities that's really easy to overdo. So I wouldn't start doing this 3 or 4 times a day. Maybe once every other day would be a great starting point. I do know that the more that you practice myofascial release, the easier it gets, but the more you start to see results in your daily yoga practice, your daily exercise practice, and even in just general life. We're going to go ahead and release that. Then we're going to take both balls and bring them right underneath the sit bones, right onto the glutes. I like to bend the knees, plant the soles of the feet on the floor, and you're just going to roll the balls onto the glutes, breaking up any adhesions, anything that happened there. And from there, we're going to roll back onto the hamstrings, sink down. I like to flex the feet. That activates the hamstrings a little bit more. And then slowly, slowly just work your way down, holding any spots that call you. When you get done with the hamstrings, we get to go to my favorite place, the back. So your back is going to be done on your time because your sensitive spots are probably not going to be mine, and mine are probably not going to be yours, and that is okay. There's only two real big rules here is we always stay off the spine and we listen to the body. So if the body starts to go into a spasm, we pull off. We add less weight. But we will slowly just take both of the balls and start right here on either side of the sacrum and then work up the spine, slowly working those erector spinae muscles. Then when we get to the scapula, the shoulder blade, we'll hold each spot around the shoulder blade, really breaking up the tension. As we work around the scapula here, we'll come up into the traps and add a little bit of pressure here. This is a really excellent way to start to deal with some of those tension headaches that life gives us. So coming on to the back, laying down flat. Again, I like to bend my knees so that I have a little bit more control over how much pressure I'm putting on the balls. We'll take both balls, lift the hips, and slip them right underneath the sacrum on either side of that sacral joint. Breathing in here, letting the prana do its job. Now, if you notice that your low back is tender, maybe start to rock side to side, really starting to get into that area. And once those areas of tension start to release, put the weight into the heels, lift the hips, and slip the balls up into the mid-back. Now there's a C curve in your back, so start to tilt your pelvis, flattening out that C curve, and really starting to get into those areas of tension. Closing the eyes here if that feels safe, and breathing in nice and deep. And when you feel like those points have been released, start in on the scapula here, right along that bra line, right along the shoulder blades. Work those balls into those trigger points. This can be incredibly painful, so make sure you go slow, listen to your body, and breathe. I know my clients often say, man, this feels like torture, but holy cow, is it effective. And working the balls back up the scapula, taking time to really pay attention to any points that are particularly painful for you. And then coming to the tops of the shoulders, really letting those balls do the work into those traps. I don't know about you, but my shoulder muscles are almost always tender. Exhale, release. And then finally, we're going to start on the neck, on the occipital. So we'll take the balls, and I like to hold them, but you'll feel on the back of your head, you have two ridges right here. Place the balls right there and add a little bit of pressure. This is your occipital ridge. This is a place where we often get tension headaches. And then bringing the balls down the neck just a little bit more. And after you've held your neck, your back, and your shoulder for as long as your spots need, come back to a seated position. We'll take the balls one last time, and work on the de Cuervo tendon, that tendon right here on the thumb that often gets so sore on new moms from doing this motion, and on the carpal tunnel muscles that get so upset as we type. So bringing the ball to the wrist, right at that big thumb joint, you're going to add a little bit of pressure and roll out to the thumb and back down, just 2 or 3 times, noticing if there's any tension there. If there is, hold. You're welcome to do the whole palm. It won't bother, it won't hurt anything. It's not necessary though. And then start to roll out onto the wrists, making some circular motions here, coming all the way up to the forearms and coming back down. 2 or 3 times. And then switching sides, rolling that de Cuervo tendon, and coming down into the wrists. And there you have it, a full body myofascial release done with racquetballs, tennis balls, or lacrosse balls. Again, hold any of those as long as you need. And this is a totally customizable practice, so make it yours. Do what you need to do to release the tension in your body. I thank you for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful day until the snow melts and we can see you on the mat in the studio. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.